Hello all my beautiful sisters from those other misters, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing an update on my Isotretinoin treatment or my Accutane treatment, Roaccutane treatment, depending on where you are in the world. People use different names for the medication. So if you're not familiar with what it is, it's a medication to treat acne, and I was on the medication in 2019 to 2020. I've had some comments recently asking me if I would do an update, and I suppose since I went off it I've had a few comments here and there, but recently I've been getting more of them, and I think that's because I've been off the medication nearly a year and a half now, and people can probably feel that in their waters. They're like, come on, give us an update, we want to know how you're going. Now, I wasn't actually going to do an update because I wasn't feeling like there was really all that much that I could talk about, so I put it to you guys on my community tab. What do you want me to talk about? What do you want to know? And you guys delivered the questions, and I am going to now deliver the answers. Since we are talking about medication that clears up acne, I am going makeup free for this video so you guys can see my skin in all of its natural glory. I only have skincare on today, that's it. I expect this video to be quite long because I am quite a chatty person, and there were, you know, a few questions. So I'm not going to go over my background with this medication. If you followed the story, I did a whole series on it, then you probably know all this stuff anyway, so I don't need to rehash it for you. If you want a refresher, or you never saw that series but you're watching this video now and you kind of need some background on it, I will link I'll link my first video in the series, and I'll link my dermatologist video that I did as well. That might help to give you a little bit of background on why I went on the medication and stuff. And you know what, I'll stick a photo in here so you can understand why I went on the medication. A few things I will mention is I was on a low dose of isotretinoin for a year. I was only on 10 milligrams daily. Some people take much higher doses, so I consider myself quite lucky, and my side effects fairly minimal compared to what some other people will go through. When it came to the time when I was nearing the end of my treatment, my dermatologist, I think he wanted me to go on, stay on the medication for another year, but on a lower dose, like a half dose. Or maybe it was 6 months. I can't remember. I'm sure I talked about it in my video series whenever that happened. I declined because I didn't want to be on the medication any longer. It is a very difficult medication to be on. It's a full lifestyle change. As a woman, you have to be on the pill. You can't get pregnant. The medication causes birth defects. It makes your skin insanely dry and uncomfortable. Sun exposure is physically painful, and there's a lot of other things like, you know, aches and pains. If you have mental health issues or you're susceptible to them, the medication can make it worse. So like there's a whole bunch of reasons why I wanted to get the fuck off that medication. Like, I was done, and I decided to roll the dice and just see how I went with it. My skin had cleared up. It was so like the difference was night and day. It was amazing. And I promised my dermatologist at like the first sign of having a spot that looked like it could potentially be an acne spot, I would go back to him, basically. Let's get into the questions. I have categorized them, and I'm gonna start with talking about like skin type and dryness. One of the big questions was, how do I define my skin now? And you guys have probably heard me harp on about this in pretty much every video because I think I'm a little bit traumatized and I just can't let it go. My skin is very dry. I used to have very oily skin, so in summer I was extremely oily, and the big battle was trying to control that oil. Then winter would roll around and I'd have this period of time for about a month where my skin would be quite dry and then it would balance out again. And I could pretty much set my clock to that. Like, it happened every single year around the same time of year, and you know, my skin would freak out and then it would be fine. So that was, you know, that was my skin since I was like 16 or whatever, until I went on this medication. So almost 20 years I just had the same skin. When I went on the medication, obviously that all changed, because one of the things that this medication does is pretty much stop you from producing oil. So now my skin is dry to very dry. In summer it's normal, like now it's very easy to get hydration into it, you know, like there's more humidity in the air, which really helps. Whereas in winter, you lose all that. Now, I've gone through 2 summers off the medication and only 1 winter off the medication. Winter was hell. I absolutely hated it with a burning passion. So much so that I have and still am considering moving to a warmer climate, because I don't want to have to deal with that bullshit every fucking year, basically. There are some questions that I'll get into later that talk more about, like, you know, issues that I faced in winter, but it was really, really difficult. Getting moisture into my skin and retaining it was like, just, it's a pain in the ass. I would have to apply moisturizer, not just in the morning when I wash my face or in the evening after I, you know, wash my face to go to bed, but several times throughout the day. And even if I was using oils and hyaluronic acid and other things that help to rehydrate and moisturize the skin, it was just like I couldn't retain the moisture. That's the big issue with it. So I am hoping that this winter will be better, but I am not going to know until it rolls around. But as far as I'm concerned, it can stay away forever. The next question is your skin less dry now than what it was during the time on the tablets? Yes, it is. I would say that my winter skin was similar to what it was like being on the medication, where it's really hard to retain moisture. It's like you get it in there, your skin drinks it up and it's just gone. And another thing that I think sort of adds to the dryness while you're on the medication is the fact that you constantly have flaking skin. One of the things that the medication does, which it does a lot of things to essentially be effective, but it turns over your skin cells quicker than normal. And that means your skin is constantly shedding old skin, basically. You're a bit like a lizard. And that is kind of annoying. And I think psychologically that adds to the feeling of being dry. Like when you look in the mirror and you're like, oh great, I have like flaky skin everywhere, and your skin feels dry, psychologically you're like, I am even drier. I am like the desert queen at the moment. So that makes it difficult. Also, another thing that makes sort of managing that flakiness difficult is your skin is quite thin when you're on isotretinoin, and that means your skin is delicate. So if you're using physical or chemical exfoliators, you can so easily go overboard and like rub your skin red raw. So yeah, it was hard to manage. It is easier to manage now though. The skin thinness is not really a thing, which is fantastic. And in winter I was getting that dry flaky skin again, but it was much easier to manage because I could exfoliate effectively. Next question, has your skin become less dry in the year following treatment? This is kind of difficult to answer because I'm not sure. When I went off the medication in September 2020, and then we moved into, you know, that was spring and we moved into summer, I believe I talked about my skin being normal and comfortable and all that jazz. And then winter rolled around and it was a completely different ball game. Now summer is here, and again I'm going through that wonderful, comfortable, easy to manage skin, but without knowing what my skin is going to do during the colder months, it's very hard for me to say whether my skin has like balanced out at all. I'm really not going to know until I go through the next winter. And also, in saying that, my skin could still balance out in the years to come. This medication is supposed to be a permanent fix for acne, so you would expect that changes that your skin goes through are going to be long lasting. I'm not going to know though until I'm off this medication for years and years and years, so that will remain to be seen. Another question that could be answered with the answer I just gave is, will my skin slowly go back to being oily, or will I be dry forever? And yeah, I don't know. I have spoken to a few people who've been on this medication. I've also had a lot of comments from people who have said that, you know, after they got off the medication, their skin never went back to the way it was prior to being on the medication. They always remained dry or normal or whatever. And some people reported that, you know, their skin went back to being oily after a year or two. And some of these people have been on the been off the medication for like 40 years. So, you know, I just don't know. I think everyone is different. And, you know, I think we all know that. Everyone responds to medication differently. Everyone has different results. So I may always have dry skin now. So, and if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. I've gotten better at managing it. I think because I have always had oily skin, I've, you know, spent literally more than a decade learning how to manage having oily skin, to then all of a sudden, pretty much almost overnight, having dry skin. It takes a lot of work to adapt to that. And although, you know, I am very lucky, I have a background in makeup artistry, which also comes with a background of understanding skin and how to manage different skin issues like dryness and oiliness. When it's your own phase, it's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, I suppose. It's very frustrating. And also you've got the aspect of trying to find those perfect products that work for you. So it's a lot to deal with. Another question was, I know your skin's become more dry, but has it also become more sensitive? I would say yes, not quite as sensitive as when I was on the medication, but I have noticed that like the areas of my skin that were already sensitive, so like around my eyes and stuff, they're a little bit more sensitive, and products and ingredients that I was sensitive to before going on the medication, I feel like I'm a little bit more sensitive to them now. So some essential oils can like make me bright red, stuff like that. So I would say yes, but not to a degree where it's like, you know, ruining my bloody life. Next question, how much has your skin changed since you finished the course? What's the difference in your skin 1 month after your last dose versus 1 year after your last dose? Okay, I feel like there's actually not been that much change. So a month after finishing the medication, my skin was pretty much, you know, as it is now. Fairly normal, quite easy to manage. The medication has quite a short half-life, so it's out of your system fairly quickly. So, you know, I was pretty happy when I went off the medication. You know, 1 month off the medication, feeling pretty good. If we skip over winter and go to like, you know, spring of last year, again, my skin was good. It was coming out of its winter rut and it was getting so much easier to manage. So I think that, you know, in the way that I answer that question, it could sound deceiving, but the winter time was a major struggle. One thing that did change for me was my sun sensitivity. I was extremely sensitive to the sun for months and months after going off the medication, and this summer it's fine. I don't have any discomfort when I'm out in the sun, and that's no joke. Like, when I was on that medication and for quite some months after coming off it, I couldn't be out in the sun without feeling like my skin was literally on fire. It was physically painful, and I would avoid as much, like, you know, being in direct sunlight as possible. Whereas this summer, I have been able to go out in the sun. I can have the sun on my bare skin and feel very comfortable. So that is probably the biggest change. Next question. Do you now suffer from skin conditions you didn't previously have? I'm currently on the medication and apparently now have eczema, which is frustrating. That is really frustrating. It's not like, it's a pain in the ass, you know, when you're trying to like manage your new life with this medication, and then you have like a new skin condition to deal with, because acne is not enough, right? No, okay, so I didn't personally. I already had dyshydrotic eczema. That was something I developed in my mid-20s, I think. I did have a time there where it was quite difficult to manage. Usually summer, I find it extremely difficult to manage my dyshydrotic eczema. But you know what's really weird? Like, I almost feel like it's cleared up. Like, maybe completely. It's really strange. Like, oh God, knock on wood, knock on wood. Seriously, I don't want to like jinx myself. Usually summer is an absolute, like, it's hell for me. It plays up really, really bad, but I don't see any signs of it on my skin. So maybe it has gone away. I'm not saying that like the medication cleared it up. I think it was stress related, but I believe when I was on the medication that I did have a time there where I kind of struggled with my dyshydrotic eczema a little bit, because obviously the medication dries your skin out, stops you from producing oil all over. It's not just your face, obviously. And dyshydrotic eczema is a balancing act with hydration, essentially. So if I remember correctly, I did struggle for a while there, but now, no, I don't have any issues. Okay, the last question in this sort of skin category is, I'd like to know if you had any major outbreaks of acne since you stopped the medication. No, not a single one. In fact, I don't even think I've had a normal pimple. Prior to developing acne, I was extremely lucky. I had very clear skin all of my life. I would get the occasional hormonal breakout, and by occasional, I mean like, you know, 2 or 3 times a year. Not every month I'd get, you know, a spot before I got my period. It was extremely rare. The most common time I would get a spot was when it was related to a product. So usually a foundation, a concealer, or a moisturizer or serum. And I would be able to pinpoint exactly what product caused an issue, and I'd just get it out of my routine. So I always was very lucky in that regard. Then I got acne. We still don't know like why I got it. The dermatologist was just like, look, sometimes this shit just happens. Now I don't get any breakouts at all, except occasionally if I am super lazy and don't wash my face in the evening, like, and I'm not talking about like when I'm wearing makeup, but like if I've washed my face in the morning and I've done all my skincare routine, I'm not wearing makeup, and I have a really big long day, and the evening rolls around, I lay down, I fall asleep without, you know, getting up and washing my face, I might wake up with like the tiniest little red dot on my skin, and then I will wash my face, and usually by the end of the day it's gone, or the next day it's gone. Occasionally I'll put a product on my skin and I'll be like, yeah, my skin doesn't like that. And it won't even be a pimple. It will be like this tiny, tiny, tiny little, like, it almost just looks like a blocked pore, which essentially is kind of what a pimple is, but it's like, I couldn't call it a pimple because to see it, you would have to get up close and really have a look. So I don't get any breakouts anymore, and definitely not any acne. Next category is the scalp, because this is something that didn't really occur to me when I went on the medication. I was expecting some changes, but I wasn't expecting so many drastic changes. And I think if you are a human being who is going to go on this medication, or currently taking it, or have taken it, you can probably relate, or you should be aware of like the changes. So first question, I was wondering if the skin on your scalp changed from the treatment. The answer is yes, absolutely. Isotretinoin is an oral medication. It doesn't know the difference between your face and the rest of your body. It actively works on your whole body. So if you don't have acne on your face, but you have bacne, which can be a major issue for people, they will still prescribe this medication to you because it works all over. My scalp went from being oily, which makes sense because my face was oily, to extremely dry. During winter, just gone, my scalp was the most difficult thing to manage because getting moisture into your scalp, especially when you have long hair, is impossible. It's so difficult to do it effectively without making your hair look like an absolute disgusting grease ball and washing it every day. And that is not recommended when you have dry skin because it's just gonna make it worse. So I really struggled. Here I am in winter applying moisturizer to my face, sometimes upwards of like 5+ times, and being unable to moisturize my scalp. So I had horrendous, like flaky, dry skin on my scalp. It was physically uncomfortable. Towards the tail end of winter and trying to like work out how I was gonna manage this, I did sort of find something that worked. So I'm hoping next winter will be easier. In case I forget, I use the, because I'm going to talk about products later, but I'll probably forget, the Davines Curl Cream, which is like it's sort of like a, like if you're a conditioner only cleanser or something like that. I used that and that really helped, but it weighed down my hair something shocking, and it didn't look good, but it helped to get the moisture back into my scalp. So I think now I found a way to deal with it, but I'm really not going to know until winter rolls around and I have to tackle it again. Before I move on, since we're talking about the scalp, I want to talk about the body in general. But before I move on to that, I also want to talk about hair, because this is important. Now, nobody asked this, but I think it's like, it's probably something people don't want to know, but hair loss on this medication is legitimate. I had so much hair loss while I was on this stuff. However, it does get better. Now, at the time, I was, seeing my hairdresser Madeline, and I was talking to her about my concerns, and she was seeing how much hair I was losing in the basin, and she could feel that I'd lost some density. And she suggested some products which worked for me. They were some Davines products. I'll list them down below. I can't remember the Superactive. I think they're in the Superactive line. I can't remember their names though, so I'll list them down below. And using those did help. However, after I went off the medication, that's when things really started to improve. And even now when I go to the hairdresser, she will show me sort of where she can see that I've had like this, you know, massive hair loss, and I've got this new hair growing through, and she'll sort of show me where it's grown to. So if you are noticing hair loss while you're on this medication, don't freak out too much. It will grow back. I don't know if it's going to grow back to the density that it was. I kind of had, you know, thin hair anyway. I believe it's hereditary in my family because I had very, very thick hair as a child, and obviously as I've gotten older it's thinned out. Same with, you know, mum and pretty much everyone in my family. They start out with a beautiful thick head of hair, and then it's suddenly not that when they're older, which is normal anyway. But I don't think the medication has done any like permanent damage to my hair or its growth, but I definitely 110% had a massive hair fall, and it freaked me out because it was a lot of hair. But moving on to the body, and going back to what I said earlier about isotretinoin being an oral drug and it works all over the body, still to this day I struggle with dryness on like my arms, my legs, and my torso. And you know, that's actually probably the easiest thing to manage because there are so many super duper hydrating like body balms and body butters that you can slather on. So that's not too bad. I actually find that to be the easiest thing that you can manage. But also there are issues like having dry eyes and sensitive eyes. That I still have that a little bit. It was really bad while I was on the medication, and it has balanced out, but there are some situations like if it's a windy day, it's like, and even like, you know, getting my hair blow dried and stuff, it's like my eyes take a beating. So I definitely don't cope with that sort of stuff as well as I did prior to going on the medication. Nosebleeds are still sometimes a thing. This medication, I mean, it works all over. So it's super common to have like thin, dried out nasal passages that result in nosebleeds. I don't get them nearly as often. I notice them mostly in winter. I haven't had a single one since like the humidity and the warmth has picked up in Melbourne, so that's been nice. But yeah, it really does, it dries you out all over. And like I'm not joking, guys. When I say all over, like, just use your imagination, okay, boys and girls? All over. Every inch of your body becomes drier. It stops producing its natural oils. So, yeah, it's like, it's a thing and it's hard. I personally feel like the rest of the body is easy to manage. The scalp is the hardest to manage, and the face is sort of in between. Okay, let's move into another category. We're going to talk about products. So Holy Grail products then and now. Do you use the same thing while you were on isotretinoin as you do now? No, I don't. And that is because I haven't I don't really repurchase much. Some of you will know that I've been trying to minimize my stash over the years. I was trying to minimize it when I was on isotretinoin, and I'm trying to minimize it now. I still buy some new stuff, but I'm not really actively purchasing like repeat products. So what I've mostly been doing is focusing on using what I have. And occasionally, you know, I'll see something and I'll be like, ooh, I want to buy that. So I buy it. However, when it comes to like the types of products, I would say, yes, I am using the same things then versus now. I go for, you know, hydrating stuff in summer. I try to go for the light but hydrating, so it doesn't feel really like heavy on my skin, because that can be uncomfortable, you know, when the humidity and the heat is up and it just feels sort of like it's weighing on you, but I still need the hydration. In winter, I still go for the much thicker, much more nourishing stuff, which I did when I was on the medication. Lip gloss is an absolute, like, must have lifesaver product for dry lips. I still have dry lips, not as bad as when I was on Isotretinoin. But while I was on that medication and I'm using all of these lip balms, which are supposed to help, and I discovered they really don't. They kind of make them feel a bit better, but they're not getting moisture back into the lips, which is like the thing that, you know, sort of gives you that longevity of comfort. And I discovered lip gloss is the winner. I was just using, like, you know, ColourPop lip glosses and other lip glosses that I had in my stash. So really, like, you know, affordable, easy to find stuff. Lip gloss is the winner. Like that, if I could recommend any one product to someone going on this medication, I would say don't even fucking worry about lip balm. Get a lip gloss. Get a lip gloss, and when your skin or your lips are feeling dry, put that on. That's the one thing. Something else that I gravitate towards nowadays is blue tansy. That's an ingredient that my skin responds really well to, and I find it helps with any of this. Like, you can probably see things are looking a little bit ruddy, a little bit like red. This is very common and has been since before I was on the medication, and I find blue tansy helps to balance that out. I've been using the Sunday Riley Lunar Oil, but it's in heaps of stuff these days. I still use facial oils, but I actually wear them mostly in in winter, and mostly at night. I actually no longer like to put oil on my skin during the day, because if I put makeup over the top, I just find that, like, with my, you know, smile lines and other fine lines, it just makes my makeup move too much. So we're not really friends. I just gravitate more towards hydrating foundations these days. If I'm wearing a matte foundation, like I've still got some in my stash and I'm trying to work through them, I will sometimes put a little bit of oil into it. But otherwise, I mostly just use oils at night. And another thing that I really enjoyed was sheet masks. Some of them are fantastic for injecting moisture into the skin, and like not just putting it on and feeling comfortable and then taking it off and being like, well, there wasn't much change. There's heaps of sheet masks that do that, don't get me wrong. But sometimes I'd put on a sheet mask and I would have relief from dry skin for 2 or 3 days. Like, it's actually injecting and sort of repairing the fuckery that's going on below the surface. And I think, like, you gotta do your trial and error to find the ones that work for you, because some that were highly praised online just didn't work for me, and others that I had in my stash that only had 2 or 3 stars, they were like the fucking winners. So everyone's different. And it's really going to come down to trial and error. Another holy grail product that I feel like saved me at the end of winter just gone was actually from ColourPop. The Fourth Ray Beauty, the Thirst Aid Priming Moisturiser. Wow, that stuff is, it's really good. Look, I don't think the ingredients in it are going to be anything that's, like, you know, groundbreaking, and definitely not appropriate for 37-year-old skin, especially if you're going for, like, anti-aging stuff. But the relief that offered me for, like, making my skin feel hydrated for a whole day, that's priceless when you are slowly losing your sanity because you cannot get moisture back into your skin. Another one that is an absolute non-negotiable if you are on this medication or have been on this medication is an SPF. and that's year round. Like, you know, a good SPF is absolutely critical. And look, the ones that I use are the ultraviolet ones, but there's heaps of good ones on the market. So, you know, you just find what works for you. I was also asked if I'm using over-the-counter or prescribed products. I have a prescription for retinol or tretinoin, which is like the topical retinol product. And I mean, you can buy them over the counter in Australia, but so many of them are expensive. And I can get a prescription from my doctor really cheap, and the tube is huge and it lasts forever, and I share it with my mum. And look, my doctor gave me a prescription for that prior to having acne, and he happily prescribes it even after I've had acne. I can go to any GP and say, you know, I've had acne and I've been on isotretinoin, and please can I have a prescription for, you know, a topical retinoid, and they will give it to me. Most people, like, it's not difficult to get in Australia. Recently I actually purchased what's it called? Not Retrieve. Retrieve is the one that my doctor prescribes, but I bought one off iHerb. Differin. So it's the adapalene gel, 0.1%. I believe it was previously only available by prescription, but it's a topical retinoid and it's available on iHerb, and I had it shipped here and it's like $30. And I've used it and I like it. It's good and it works, and I would say that it is like, it works exactly the same as my Retrieve cream. The difference is Differin is a gel, Retrieve is a cream. I had the same amount of retinol uglies. I would say that Retrieve in Australia is probably better value because the tube is bigger than Differin, but the price is higher. Yeah, I don't know. I still feel like it would be better value because I think it's like, I think it's $50 something, but then I may also get it with my concession card. I don't know. I don't know what the price is. I haven't actually purchased Retrieve in quite some time. I've been using Differin. The last time I got it was when I just went off the isotretinoin, so it's been quite some time. But yes, I do still use prescribed products, or I can, but the rest of my routine is just stuff that I have, essentially, and I choose my products based on what my skin is doing and feeling like at the time. Another one was, do you feel like you have a lot of products in your collection that are now wasted because they aren't suitable for you? Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have sort of curated my collection quite a bit since I went off the medication, so I have gotten rid of a lot of things that I know they're not going to work for me. There's no point in me keeping them, but occasionally I will pull something out. Like for the other day I opened a face wash which I used, and I thought this will be fine. It's just a face wash, but for one, I don't actually like the face wash anyway. I think even if I had oily skin, I wouldn't have liked it, but I do feel like it's too drying for me. So, you know, there are some things that I'm still slowly just decluttering over time. But yes, you know, like I said, I went from being someone with oily skin, and my whole collection pretty much was like, it was all for a person who has oily skin, and I'm not that person anymore. So, you know, yes, there's been a big change. The last question in the products category, I kind of already touched on this, so I might be repeating myself a little bit, but I feel like I can go a tiny bit more in depth with it, be a bit more specific. Now that you don't have breakouts, can you identify products that do break you out? Coconut oil does it for me. Coconut oil does it for me too, and I'm just not about that shit in my skincare products. Like, that stuff clogs up my pores something fucking shocking, and it always did. I understand that some people are really into, like, you know, the natural skincare and stuff, but it's not always the best way to go. And I know, based on my personal experience, for me, that's an absolute fucking no. I'm not into it. Another one that is a major pain point for me is silicone heavy products. I can use a little bit of silicone. Like at the moment I'm using Refa's new like daily moisturizer, and that has 3% silicone in it. But when I put it on, I can't feel it. Everything feels great. It's perfect. It doesn't break me out. There's no issues. But if I put something like Benefit's Professional on my face, good Lord, like disgusting. And it, ugh, yuck. The thought of it makes me want to shower. It is so gross. So yes, I always did, or always was very good at identifying the products and some ingredients that broke me out. And you know, when I got acne, that kind of all went out the window, because I'm like, well, fucking everything's making it worse and nothing's making it better. And it was like, it wasn't products that were the issue, it was my body, essentially. It needed help. But after clearing it up and being off the medication, I've gone back to who I was in that sort of regard, where I can now identify what is causing me issues. So that's really nice. Next category is side effects and mental and physical health. So I'm going to start with the most simple question, straight to the point. Do you still have any side effects? Look, I don't think so. There is one thing I want to talk about, but like if we think about things that I've already touched on, like sensitivity to sun exposure, you know, one year I couldn't stand it, and the next year, you know, I'm out and about in the sun and everything's great. Hair loss, that was really upsetting, but it's growing back. So, and you know, that's something that's really slow going. So it all comes down to patience. Something that I don't know if this is linked to the being on the medication or if it's just what my body is now. Bruising. So I wasn't really one to bruise easily, but when I went on the medication, I did. I bruised very easily. Now I feel like I also still bruise very easily. Like I have this bruise on my knee. Like I don't even know where it come from. I just woke up with it. And I've got another one on my thigh. I've got them on my arms. Like they're all up and down my legs. I feel like I said to someone just the other day, I can just look at the corner of a bed and I've got 3 new bruises on me. So I don't know if that's linked to the medication. I feel like in my head, I kind of associate this medication with bruising easily, because there was one incident that kind of scared me a little bit. I noticed one day I had this gigantic bruise on my foot. Like it took up pretty much half the top of my foot, and it was swollen, and it just sort of got worse over a really short period of time. And it scared me so much that I actually went and saw a doctor about it. And I said, you know, like, I feel dumb coming here because I've got a swollen and bruised foot that otherwise doesn't hurt, and I don't remember how I did it, but I'm on this medication. I know that there can be some like bad side effects that can be life-threatening, and these things should be managed. And I spent about an hour with that doctor, and she was, you know, examining my foot and she's like, oh my god, have you fractured it? Like, what have you done? And I'm like, it doesn't hurt. Like, there's literally no pain. I can move everything. I did nothing. It just came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't kick it. Nobody stepped on my foot. Like, it just was not there, and then it was there, and it got worse really quickly, and now it won't go away. And yeah, she spent a lot of time like doing an examination and making sure everything was all on the up and up. And I think it was just one of those things. It was just, well, I'm kicking stuff over. I just had like a weird bruise on my foot. And eventually that cleared up and everything was fine. I never had another one, but I do bruise easily now. So maybe that's a side effect. I don't know. It might also just be my body getting older and now bruising easily. Another question that sort of fits into like similar thing that I was just talking about, have you noticed any long-term effects on your health? I remember you having some body aches and problems during the time you were on the tablets. The body aches are gone, which is fantastic. Other than like normal 37-year-old, I get sore after doing a workout or, you know, having a big day or whatever. Like, that's all normal stuff, and that is shit that I dealt with prior to going on the medication as well. So when it comes to like those serious, not serious, but like the shitty like aches and pains and stuff like that, that's all gone, and that went really quickly. I think I was even like towards the end of my treatment, I feel like my body had adapted to that and I wasn't experiencing it as much, which my dermatologist did say those are the sort of things that you should feel early on and like throughout the mid section of your treatment, and it should get better. And it did. So no, that it wasn't long lasting for me. I was also asked if I had had any side effects hormonally that's persisted a year after. No. So after finishing the medication, I went off the birth control pill. If you are a female and you are on this medication, you have to be on the birth control pill because, like I said, it can cause birth defects. Now, I had been on the pill for like nearly 20 years at that point, since I was 16. And I was desperate to go off it. I had wanted to go off the pill before I even started the medication, but I couldn't. So I went off the pill after I finished Isotretinoin, and everything was fine. There was like no hormonal issues at all. My dermatologist said when you go off the pill, your skin might freak out. My skin did not freak out. Like, everything was fine. I did notice, like, you know, I would get more grumpy. I get PMS around the time that my period was due and stuff, which I never really did when I was on the pill. I would even say my cramps got better when I went off the pill. However, I've gone back on the pill like within the last week, so it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how things go. But no, hormonally I was like top notch while I was off Isotretinoin and off the birth control pill. I was happy as Larry. I also had people asking about my emotional and mental well-being after going off the medication. Now, if you don't know this about Isotretinoin, the medication, if you are susceptible to mental health issues or, you know, things like depression and stuff like that, it can make them worse, and it can also bring them up. Now, when I was seeing a dermatologist to go on, or when my doctor was like, I think you need to go on this medication, you need to see a dermatologist, I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't fucking want to deal with this shit. Like, it's a risky medication. I don't want to take it. Like, can't we find another way? But there was no other way. We tried other ways and it didn't work. So I went and saw my dermatologist, and we talked about, you know, the issues around how it can affect your mental health. And his big thing was, do you already suffer with mental health issues? If not, then I feel a low dose is going to be very safe for you to take. And he was right. I was absolutely fine. Other than, like, you know, normal life stresses, I was fine. I also do get SAD, seasonal affective disorder, but while I was on the medication, I was all good. It wasn't worse. when I went off the medication this winter just gone, my seasonal affective disorder was like through the roof. I've never experienced it that bad before. It was very difficult. Now, I don't think it had anything to do with isotretinoin. I think it had a whole fucking lot to do with general life stress and being in lockdown for fucking 2 years because of COVID. So I think I have been fine, even great mentally off the medication. And, you know, once winter was gone and the sun started to come out, I haven't been happier in a long, long time. So I don't believe the medication caused me any issues with that. I believe it's my other seasonal affective disorder thing, which I struggle with. I'm hoping this year it will be easier because I don't think we're going to be in lockdown again. The next category is going to be talking about whether I would take the medication again. So, first question, what would be the breaking point for you, cystic acne or skin becoming oily, etc., to consider another round in the future? So like I mentioned earlier, when my dermatologist asked me if I would stay on the medication for longer and I declined, I basically made a deal with him that if I noticed any signs of breakouts that were not healing at a natural rate, I would go back and see him to go back on the medication. Now, I also had a few people mention, which this particular question mentioned, about oily skin. Like, would you go on the medication if you had oily skin? Absolutely not. No. And I don't think a dermatologist would prescribe it for oily skin. Like, oily skin is not a reason to be on this medication. This medication is fucking serious shit. Like, it fucks your body up. I would only ever go on it again if I had cystic acne. And cystic acne is the kind of thing where it's like, it's acne that doesn't go away. Like, you can have a spot on your face for a month, 2 months. You can have one spot that then merges with another spot near it and another spot and another spot, and before you know it, you've got this gigantic welt on your face. Or if one of the spots pops and starts like weeping, it will be almost an open wound on your face for weeks and weeks. Like, it doesn't heal. So I would go on the medication at the first sign of that. If I get a pimple and the pimple clears up in a week, that's not acne. That's not cystic acne. If I get a spot that pops up on my face and gets bigger and bigger and is there for 2 weeks, I'm calling my dermatologist and making a fucking appointment, because I know it's going to take me a month to 2 months just to get in to see him. And if he says, I want you to go back on the medication, I'm probably going to go back on the medication. I'm going to try and stamp it out as quick as I can. But for something like oily skin or a small breakout, absolutely not. Another question I had was, knowing what you know now, would you make the same choice about going on the medication? And absolutely. Like, my skin was not ever going to get better on its own. I had tried everything, and I had been trying it for a long time, and it was just not, like, it's not worth the headache. Being on that low dose is not as scary as a lot of the things you'll read online about it. Some people may need a higher dose. My dermatologist was all about low dose, long term, basically. So your side effects are minimized, and the ones that you do get, you can usually, like, your body adapts to them, and you sort of, this isn't the right terminology, but I'll say grow out of it. So things like the aches and pains and stuff like that, you know, I had them for a while and then they dissipated, and occasionally I get like a knee would be sore or something like that, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the first few months as being on the medication. So I would 110% go on a low dose. I would absolutely hate it if I had to be on it for a year, because I am nearing the end of my childbearing years. Like, I'm going to be 38 in November, and if you go on this medication, you can't have a baby. It's just, no, you can't. You have to wait until you're off it. So that would be pretty much my only hesitation at this point. But also, I would not want to put myself through having acne again. Like, it's soul destroying. I remember, this is one of the, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story, but this is one thing that always comes to my mind when I think about having fucking acne. I remember being at dinner with Kat, I believe Simon was there, I think Ken might have been there, AJ, and a bunch of other like friends that I met through YouTube. And we were in the city, and it was a Mexican place, and I remember eating, and I had, you know, cystic acne, and I also had a full face on, and I'm always like, you know, conscious of how bad makeup looks over acne and all that jazz when you're trying to hide it and cake it on and cover the redness and all this jazz. Even with color correcting, like, it's so hard. But I physically remember like taking a bite of something, and one of my spots that had popped and had a scab over it, the scab opened up, and I'm sitting there at that fucking table with a spot bleeding out of my face, humiliated, so embarrassed. Of course, my friends are like, you know, don't worry, like, it sucks for you, it's horrible. But it's just like, you know, it's fucking embarrassing, and it's hard, you know, and it hurts, it's physically painful. So, you know, I feel like it, until you have acne and like experience the things that come with it, you never really like understand just how much of a struggle it can be. So now when I see people with acne, like, my heart breaks for them. And now I'm getting emotional about fucking acne. Yeah, it's bad, and I don't want to let myself go through that again, because I know that I don't have to. I would want to have the treatment, and I would recommend anyone with acne who would consider this sort of treatment to go and speak to a dermatologist or their doctor, or however it works in your country, and to explore it, you know. And yeah, absolutely, I take it again, essentially. Next question is, are you still seeing your dermatologist after being off the medication? No, I'm not. Only if I feel that I need to. So I know how to find him. I can, you know, get a referral from my GP and make an appointment and go and see him if I have any issues or concerns or anything like that. But no, there was no follow-up treatment required after I went off the medication. And the last question, because this video is fucking long, the last question is, any regrets? And no, I don't have any regrets. Looking back on what I was scared would happen or worried I'd miss out on because I was on the medication, none of it, like, it was all just, there was no need for me to be worried about those things or scared about those things, because it all worked out in the end. I know, look, you know, hindsight, it's a beautiful thing. I can look back and I can see now that everything was fine, and that would give me the confidence to go on the medication again. But I do understand, if you're going on it for the first time and you're doing your research about it, you're going to read some really scary stuff. The doctors are going to tell you some really scary shit that can happen. But yeah, it was worth it for me, and I don't regret doing it. And if I had to do it again in the future, I would. Okay guys, that is the end of this very long video. Feel free to, you know, leave your comments down below if you have been on this medication, are on this medication, or are going on this medication. You've got something you want to say, please feel free. If there's anything that you want me to answer that I didn't answer in this video, feel free to ask a question. I will try to get in there and answer it for you. But that's it. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.